Welcome to Wiseout Paint Party and another Paint This Finish video. This is going to be an old favorite that I know people have asked me about, and now I'm going to be able to do it with all Wiseout paint products. It's my aged hammered copper finish. It's going to be a fun one. Looking forward to sharing the steps with all of you. So if this is something you're looking forward to, stay tuned. So first things first, what do you need? I have been using these really cool sample boards to do these things for you guys, and I think they're perfect. First and foremost, you need jet black 1 hour enamel. The 1 hour enamel is going to save us a step, and I'll show you and tell you here in a second. And of course, you need our heavy metals gilding paint in copper. Next up, we're going to need some glaze, and we're using black for this because I just think the contrast is amazing. And then I have matte varnish here, but I went ahead and went with satin, as you'll see in that part. So we'll get to that when we get there. So first and foremost, I have my Klingon S50, and it's my go-to brush for about 90% of the painting I do. And we're going to paint on our 1 hour enamel in jet black. Now, if you're wondering, is it black? Hopefully this answers that question for you. It's really that deep, just rich, amazing black. And if you're new to 1 hour enamel, the reason why I'm using it is because it has a built-in top coat. Now, if you've seen my old aged hammered copper video, there was a lot of steps. It's very tricky to get it where it needed to be, but with Wiseout paint products, we're able to skip some things. And one of the steps we were able to skip is top coating the initial coat of black paint. And you need that top coat for the stippling we're going to do. And I'll get to that when we add the copper on. But the biggest thing you need to know is that the 1 hour enamel has a built-in top coat. So once you paint it on, it ends up this really beautiful eggshell finish, and it's top coated already. And as you see, that was one coat down. We're going to do 2 coats to make sure we got complete coverage. With that built-in top coat, is going to allow for the copper to move around a little bit, which is what you would need. Let's say if I used black chalk synthesis paint, before I went to the copper step, I'd want to add a coat of varnish or 1 hour enamel clear coat in between the paint and the copper. And like I said, I'll get to that here in a second. So what using 1 hour enamel does is it allows us to skip that step. If you're new to 1 hour enamel, it dries super fast, so you want to make sure you move quite quickly. Get it on, lay it, and walk away. If you want it to be flat, it will flatten out beautifully all on its own as long as you do not overwork it. You paint it on, you get it where you want, you gently lay over the top, and you let gravity do its work, and it will flatten out beautifully. So as you can see, really black, really beautiful. Next up is going to be our copper. So that's after 2 coats. This is what you get, the eggshell finish. I have one of our Wiseout premium brushes to do the stippling with, and of course copper. So what we're going to do is we're going to literally just brush right back over top of the jet black. So you're like, oh my gosh, why did I even do jet black if I'm just going to brush over top of it? Well, what we're going to do is what we call a subtractive stipple. So what that means is you're going to paint the paint on, and then you're going to pull the paint off by stippling. And you can see me kind of pouncing down onto it, stippling down onto it, whatever the wording you want to use. And what that's doing is allowing the jet black 1 hour enamel to peek through. And what that's going to do is going to add to that hammered effect. It's going to give it some more depth to it. So what you want to do is ensure you're adding enough of the paint to have some texture. Now, our heavy metals gilding paints wants to flatten. Like all of our paints, it's very self-leveling, so it's a little tricky here. So you want to make sure you add enough and then stipple it, and that way it has like some little bumps and little ridges and all the kind of fun little things you're seeing going on here. So initially, I painted on a good thick coat, and I'm bouncing down, straight up and down, straight up and down, straight up and down. And you'll see as I get towards the end, as I get it kind of where I want it, I'll add a little more paint here, a little more paint there, and ensuring I have a good amount. And you can see I just brushed off some of the paint. You'll still have paint in your brush, so if you don't need to necessarily go back to your jar all the time. So just do this until you get the desired effect, right? And then you see I'm leaning the brush to its side. This is a little trick. So the paint is going to sit on the really ends of your filaments. And if you tap the sides instead of going directly down, it'll give a different effect. So a more of a hammered kind of a look rather than needle pokes into your paint. So it's just something I usually do whenever I'm doing a hammered metal look, in and around, to just add to that effect. So you do the stippling up and down, and then you tap your brush from the side. And look at how cool that is. Very cool, right? Next up is going to be glaze, and we're going to let this dry. And one of the tricks before we get to the glaze, use a fan to help it dry quicker, because it will want to self-level on you. So if you put it in front of a fan, the texture that you added in there will stay a little bit better drying quickly. All right, so now we're going to the black glaze. We've not used black glaze before. It starts off this charcoal gray color. It's just the medium that carries the black. That will dissipate and disappear, and all you will have left is the black glaze color. And what I'm doing here is adding the aging, and you'll see right before your very eyes all the little bumps and ridges and all the things I created are now have the black glaze down into it. And I'm using a baby wipe. If you've not used a baby wipe before or not done glazing before, it's a great little trick to have a moist something to wipe the glaze off to get the desired result. So I go back in, I add a little bit more glazing in the deeper recessed areas, use my baby wipe, wipe it back, and this is all I'm going to do. And you can see how really cool that is. It gave all the little bumps more depth and more just something to it. And you can see it just sits down in there. And that's all going to dry black. So here we are, a couple hours later. It's still probably drying a little bit. No, actually, this was completely dry because we're doing the satin varnish. So I'm using the satin varnish because I want the reflectivity as much as possible. I had matte varnish in the beginning and then realized when I got to the end, I was like, no, I want this metallic finish to be metallic and not a matte look. So to do that, to get that reflectivity back into it or continue adding to it, you're going to put satin over top, and you'll see how much more sheen that metallic will have with the satin over top. So that would be my suggestion anytime you're going to do a metallic finish. If you're looking for a more metallic look, use our satin varnish. And this is what you end up with. Really cool, really fun. You see it went from wood to this aged hammered copper finish, just like that. And as you can see, using Wise Owl paint products makes it so much easier, less steps to get this really cool effect. So if you're wanting to give this a try, be sure to find your local Wise Owl paint retailer nearest you.